represent. But I do portray the natives that did fight alongside both sides of the War of 1812. It wasn't until the last year in 1814 that a lot of them joined up and fought with the American Army. But for the majority of the war, they were on the British side. As for Salvage here, he does basically portray a British soldier. A common question we get asked is, why did the British Army wear such a brightly colored uniform out on a battlefield? Because in our minds today, it makes sense to wear something like what I'm wearing, some sort of camouflage. Who in the right mind steps out into an open field wearing a bright red coat, generally a tall shiny hat, and to top everything all off, they put on a big white shoot me here X right in the middle of their chest. And it seems insane. But believe it or not, this is the smartest uniform to be wearing during this war. The reason for that is actually because of the technology and the weapons that they're using. So I'll talk a little bit about the gun, and then I'll come back to the reason why a brightly colored uniform is a smarter idea. Mike's going to come around and show you a 75 caliber, smooth bore, flintlock, muzzle loading musket. I'll give you a closer look at the lock mechanism that makes this gun work. So what has to actually happen in order for this gun to go off? If you notice, you take a closer look, there's a piece of rock at the back, and that rock flies forward, striking a metal, and that will create a spark. Now, flint hitting metal creates a spark that will hopefully land into the pan where you poured some gunpowder. Hopefully this small charge gets ignited. Hopefully a flame goes jetting through the barrel. Hopefully it sets off the main charge you poured down the muzzle. Hopefully a musket ball comes flying out the end, and hopefully you hit what you're aiming at. Now, there is a lot of hopefullys with these muskets, because there's actually three major problems. The first one being is that it doesn't like to work all the time. Even in perfect conditions, which is no wind, no rain, and the sun is out, these things still have a 20% misfire rate, which means 1 out of 5 times you pull the trigger in those perfect conditions, it's not going to work. Now, if it's raining out, or if it is windy, at that point it makes a better club than an actual firearm. Second problem with the weapon is it's not very accurate at all, because it's called a smooth bore weapon, which does mean it's just as smooth on the inside of the barrel as it is on the outside. So the accuracy you would get with these weapons is roughly 75 yards away. You could aim and hit your target. Anything even out to 100 yards, you can miss it up to 9 feet in any direction. So, kind of makes it hard to fight with. These things do have a killing range, though, of over 200 yards away. Just good luck trying to hit that target beyond 75 yards. So, how do you hit something standing that far away? Well, it was very simple. You take 1,000 of your troops and you line them up, shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. You make them point and fire in a general direction, because out of 1,000 weapons, 800 of those guns should have worked. You send 800 musket balls across the battlefield. It doesn't matter what your soldiers are aiming at. If they are aiming, they will hit their target past 200 yards, or one of them will. So the third problem with the weapon is smoke. And this is going back to the bright red uniforms. These things generate a great deal of it. These are black powder weapons. It's not smokeless gunpowder that we're using, or that they used 200 years ago. These things generate so much smoke back then that they state the first time they can even see what they've been shooting at is the distance about from here to the end of the room. It was about 20 to 30 paces away. Now that does not give you a lot of time out on the battlefield to figure out whether that soldier marching through that smoke was your friend or your enemy. Simple rule of warfare, guy comes stepping through that smoke wearing a color you don't recognize, you shoot him. Shoot first, ask questions later, that way you will live to tell the battle. So when you're marching through that smoke, you want a brightly colored uniform on to tell everybody either I'm on your team or I'm not. So, hence the reason why the brightly colored uniform that the British Army wore. Now, 200 years ago, every army kind of had their own different color, so you could tell who's who out on the battlefield. During the War of 1812, everyone knew the British wore red. During the War of 1812, the United States Army wore blue coats. So, red team versus blue team. So, if you thought you're going to be smart and you're going to show up wearing camouflage, yes, everybody will shoot at you, just because no one knows what side of the battlefield that you're on. So Mike's going to go through the loading procedure of the gun. He's going to fire off 2 shots. He's just going to load on his own time. Put blank cartridge, prime in, load. So he's actually going to skip a step just because we're loading indoors. But generally what you would do is also put the paper down the barrel. The paper was there to act as a wadding, so you get a little bit more compression on the ball when you fire these off, as well as it gives you a little bit more accuracy. So the paper hugs the barrel and kind of puts a little bit more accuracy on the ball. But at this point, he is ready to fire. I will warn everybody, especially being indoors, it does make a noise. If you want to plug your ears, now would be the time. Oh, if you have a camera and you want to get it ready, the best time to hit your trigger is when I yell fire, because that's when Mike's going to pull his. Present. Fire. Prime and load. So if you notice, all the smoke is actually coming back into the room. Gives you an idea of the amount of smoke that is actually created from one musket. Keep in mind, 1,000 of these things were going off on a battlefield. On top of that, there was pieces of artillery. Artillery back then, some cannons were so large it took about 6 to 8 pounds of gunpowder to actually make those things go off. So he's going to fire one more shot, so same procedure as before. Present. Fire. Spring arrows. Now another question we often get is, did they have rifles? They did have rifles during the War of 1812. There were some problems with rifles 200 years ago. They took longer to load, and they actually costed more to make. So the same reason why modern military doesn't give everybody a sniper rifle today was the same reason 200 years ago. You give your elite troops the rifles, and then you give basically everybody a machine gun. The machine gun of this time period was basically the muzzle-loading ground-best musket, because you can pump out more rounds with this than you could a rifle. So that was the differences between the two guns. But that there does conclude the musket demonstration. I'm going to send you guys back downstairs. You guys can meet up with Chelsea downstairs in the guard room, and she'll take you on to your next stop. Other than that, folks, thank you for coming, and thank you for joining us here.